So we're going to go through and dissect just Tucker Carlson's accurate, fair coverage of the January 6th hearing.
Tells you a lot about the priorities of our ruling class that the rest of us are getting yet another lecture about January 6th tonight from our moral inferiors, no less. An outbreak of mob violence, a forgettably minor outbreak by recent standards that took place more than a year and a half ago, but they've never stopped talking about it. In the meantime, in the 18 months since January 6th, gas prices have doubled. Drug ODs have reached their highest point ever. The U.S. economy is now careening toward a devastating recession at best. And scariest and least noted of all, this country has never in its history been closer to a nuclear war. Yet the other networks cannot be bothered to cover any of that tonight. Instead, they've interrupted their regularly scheduled programming to bring you yet another extended primetime harangue from Nancy Pelosi and Liz Cheney about Donald Trump and QAnon. The whole thing is insulting. In fact, it's deranged, and we're not playing along. This is the only hour on an American news channel that will not be carrying their propaganda live. They are lying, and we are not going to help them do it.
So my first favorite phrase was by recent standards. I don't know, Tina. I don't know, Tina. Was I on vacation at a protest that was more violent than hundreds of people storming the Capitol, trying to hang politicians, as Status Coup showed, which YouTube took down our footage? Rammed a police officer's head in the door, other police officers, which I'm not.
Attacked, tasered. I mean,
right. So I love his
knocked unconscious. I mean, the Proud Boys knocked one unconscious on it. So yeah, no, absolutely not. In fact, in all of the years I've been covering protests, I don't think I could ever recall once seeing any Antifa, anti-fascist, BLM, whatever, ever do that to a cop of any of these, of any measure. So no, absolutely not. And these are the guys that are chanting all the time, for the thin blue line and pro cop, and they're our heroes. And yet here they are, which is why I think partially at the very start of January 6th, after it started coming out, the days that followed, you'd see a lot of these people saying those were Antifa plants. They weren't actually Trump supporters, right? Which is just bullshit. I mean, it was absolutely Trump supporters, but I think those that are sort of on the marginal edges of this movement, there may be your average Republican, mom and dad, whatever, boomers, they could not wrap their head around that they were associated with a group of individuals that would do this stuff. Like, that was like, what,
So Tina, let's get to our friend Tulsi Gabbard, who I gotta say, I pride myself on being a good judge of character of politicians. I usually could smell bullshit from a mile away. But even I was a bit had by Tulsi Gabbard in 2020. Yeah. I interviewed her. I did too, twice. I thought she had some core principles, but boy, Extreme Makeover Tulsi edition has really, really been something to see. So of course, Tulsi was on with Tucker last night. And by the way, this is somebody, to her credit, that has, fought for America, to defend America. So you would think that she would probably have an issue with the American government under attack based on a lie, but not so much. Let's play the first clip of Tulsi on Tucker Carlson's fantasy counter programming.
Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. So given everything the country faces right now, both domestically and abroad, why are the news networks colluding with a political party to tell us this is the most important thing?
Because whether you're talking about the mainstream media or you're talking about Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, or Congress, frankly, they don't care about the real threats that we face domestically to our freedoms and our democracy.
So, Tina, there's more from Tulsi, so buckle up. But what's really interesting, because I look at words and phrases, you know how Tucker Carlson just said the news networks are colluding with, I guess, the Democratic Party?
Yeah, it's
Colin, can we put up that CNN article about Sean Hannity and the text messages?
Yeah.
So when Tucker talks about news networks colluding, CNN exclusive, text messages reveal Fox's Hannity advising Trump White House and seeking direction. Tina, where does Sean Hannity work?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it might be Fox.
What does Fox have in its name?
News.
Right. So is Fox if Sean Hannity was a advisor to the Trump White House and Fox is called news, wouldn't that be the definition of collusion between a news network and a sitting president?
100%. I mean, the hypocrisy is just astonishing. When I saw those text messages last night, I was like, there it is in black and white.
I mean, Jeff Zucker, by the way, the CNN president that was just forced to resign, Jeff Zucker, it was shown, he was basically working with Andrew Cuomo when he was governor of New York for his little, must-see TV press conferences. So they're all colluding with the politicians. They're all corrupt. But this idiot, Tucker Carlson, is pretending, this collusion, when his network literally is the definition of collusion.
Yeah.
Literally, those text messages show Hannity was pushing whatever message on election day and then after election day.
Yeah, he was telling them how to message everything. Like, stop putting the lunatics out there. They're starting to make the nervous, sort of old school Republicans want to walk away from Trump. Like, he was actually giving them instructions on how to better frame their arguments so that they'd be more palatable to the American public. Yeah, that's absolutely collusion.
Yeah, it's a joke.
It's propaganda. Come on now.
Let's move on to the rest of Tulsi Gabbard.
I think the most disturbing moment a year and a half later, looking back, is the moment where Lindsey Graham turned to the Capitol Police and said, "You have guns, use them." Now, they had just shot an unarmed military veteran to death who stood about 5 feet tall. And I guess what bothers me the most is that nobody cared. I mean, police take life, often it's justified. We've defended it on this show. But to not investigate it or explain it suggests that the life that was taken was worth nothing. And that is the message that they're sending. This woman's life didn't mean anything. It wasn't, we just killed her and threw her away. I mean, how can members of Congress sit there and allow that?
Members of Congress are not, again, they don't have their priorities straight. So much of this has been politicized, it's been sensationalized with very specific objectives that have nothing to do with upholding the Constitution or what's in the best interest of the country and the American people. And I think the way that this hearing has been actually not even so-called produced, it's literally being produced by somebody, I think, who is from ABC News in order to try to come with with an objective that has nothing to do, again, with what's best for the people, what's best for the Constitution. They're trying to achieve their own political interests. And it's just really sad that they're abusing their power in order to do that.
This is the kind of propaganda show that we used to make fun of when it took place in totalitarian. When you are
the propaganda show, Tucker. That is you right now. Do they not hear themselves? If anybody had been saying this about George Floyd or a million other people, what would their response be? But now, because it's Babbitt, it's say her name. I mean, the hypocrisy is astonishing.
But again, keywords. We got to focus on keywords. Tulsi Gabbard just mentioned the Constitution, right?
Right.
She loves the Constitution. I don't know. Is hundreds of people storming the Capitol to try and overturn the constitutional process for the handover of power, certifying the Electoral College votes? And by the way, we shouldn't have an Electoral College. By the way, we don't even live in a fucking democracy. You don't have a democracy if the popular vote does not win. You don't have a democracy if you could literally have government officials be bought off. But that's a different
conversation. I mean, we're set up as a representative democracy. That was the intent of the founding fathers. So if you're talking about the Constitution, we're talking about the country within those frameworks.
But Tina, she just mentioned the Constitution. Yeah. This is in the Constitution. The Electoral College, the certification of the election. There's a process. The electors go to the Electoral College, yada, yada, yada. And then on January 6th or whatever the date is that it falls, Congress certifies the election. I don't know. I think it's pretty much it's a pretty big infringement on that Constitution Tulsi Gabbard's referencing when hundreds of people storm the fucking Capitol to overturn an election.
That's the rational viewpoint, Jordan. Can I explain what these individuals actually believe, though? Because I think what needs to happen here is a moment of listen. I'm not saying I agree with these people. I don't. I agree with you. You're correct. But having said that, I've interviewed and talked to enough of these individuals to understand where they're coming from. So I think in order to understand why they believe this, you have to sort of get into their brain a little bit. So a lot of the folks that participated in this, when you talk to them, the first thing they're going to say to you is that they are protecting the Constitution because of course they believe the big lie. That's a given, right? They believe that Trump did win this election, that there was all kinds of cheating and rigging and, various things that happened. So in their mind, Trump won the election, and if they're going to preserve the democracy that the founding fathers set up, they have to be part of that 3%, right? So we've talked about this. The 3%ers believe that this was the 3% of the colonialists that rose up against the British government to set up the democracy. This is absolutely a false belief, but it's what they do believe. So in their mind, they're the patriots, right? We're the ones that are willing to put our lives on the line, and they will tell you this. I will put my life on the line to defend this Constitution and to defend this democracy. And how I'm going to do that is to prevent Biden from becoming president.
All right. Now we get to the good stuff. Let's play the first of Michael Tracy, my former colleague at TYT. Michael Tracy. Well, let's just let the clip speak for itself.
Yeah.
So not only are these people sinister, they're also kind of neurotic and pathetic. They're telling us about the terrors of January 6th, but in reality, we just learned how fragile and narcissistic they actually are. They can't bring themselves to denounce real and present threats of violence in our nation's cities. They're everywhere. One of the people who's chronicled them closely is Michael Tracy, who is an actual independent journalist. His work is on Substack, and we highly recommend it. But he's been following us since the first day, and we're interested in his views on it. Michael Tracy, thanks a lot for coming on. What do you make of this?
Well, on that very first day, Chuck Schumer stood up and said something pretty incredible. He said that January 6th, 2021 will go down in infamy just like Pearl Harbor went down in infamy. So he likened the magnitude of January 6th immediately to Pearl Harbor. So already this process of myth-making was underway hours after Congress reconvened and they evaded that momentary trauma of having their legislative business interrupted for a couple hours. That's what we were told was tantamount to Pearl Harbor.
So he's, it's funny because on one end, obviously, it's absurd to call this Pearl Harbor. But the fact that he led with that, because he's obviously trying to minimize it, I want to remind people, if people don't know, and I didn't say anything when I was at TYT because I kind of was a team player and didn't want to criticize him so much. Michael Tracy, who's minimizing the January 6th insurrection. Let's play the Maxine Water clip.
Oh.
This is Michael Tracy. Let's show the tweet first. Michael Tracy, after he, interviewed Maxine Waters just shoved me and angrily stormed off as I asked her a question. Not a violent shove, but she initiated physical content. Let's show the Maxine Water shove of Michael Tracy.
That's going to throw 34 million people out of health care. And so we know how to do both, and we're doing that.
When you say Russia's not our friend, was Obama mistaken to forge military cooperation with Russia in Syria and to try to get a START treaty?
Look, you and I have a different agenda, young man. I'm out to impeach this president. Get that straight. I'm out to impeach the president. I'm not going to be diverted by people who are Obama haters.
Do you think...
Woo, there you go.
Okay, there you go. She pushed me aside, but that's okay.
So Michael Tracy, who, minimized January 6th. Of course, it wasn't Pearl Harbor, but but he was shoved. Well, Michael, I was shot at by police in North Dakota.
Exactly.
I got hit in my calf by a rubber bullet. It wasn't a real bullet, but it fucking hurt. I had trouble walking for 2 weeks because I was hit a rubber bullet in my calf muscle. I actually didn't even say anything because I didn't want to make the story about me. But my people that were with me could tell you I was hit by a rubber bullet. It hit me in my calf. I was bleeding. It was hard to walk for 2 weeks. I had to work every day because I was there working 16-hour days, limping because I was shot with a rubber bullet. But cry crocodile tears that Maxine Waters shoved.
He didn't even, you know what that was more like? It was more like a talk to the hand.
Right. And by the way, I've had Trump supporters online
I
in
would
2016
say that was a shove. Honestly, like, come on, are you serious, dude?
I've had Trump supporters. I've had Trump supporters actually shove me. That was a
100%.
light.
I've been
light
stopped.
praise. So anyway, it's just funny that Tucker has, the guy shoved by Maxine Waters on to minimize this. But let's move on. There's another clip from Michael Tracy.
Isn't it the legitimate role of the news media to add a little bit of perspective? Maybe you don't editorialize, but I don't know, 3,000 people killed on December 7th, 1941. Ashley Babbitt killed on January 6th, like Pearl Harbor. Why nobody push back against that?
Well, because most of the media probably would only push back from the standpoint of saying that Pearl Harbor isn't an extreme enough of a comparison. They might have to invent some, alien invasion or something to liken January 6th to, given how emotionally traumatized they were by the whole experience. It's interesting that Democrats continue to focus so ineluctably on this issue, because who were the purported victims of January 6th? Who are the people that they're claiming really suffered the most? Well, mainly it's the politicians and journalists who were in the Capitol that day. And those happen to be two of the most despised groups in America. And yet, Democrats have now apparently calculated that keeping this front and center is going to benefit them in the midterms.
He doesn't even have a handle on what actually this is about, because that's absolutely not what it's about. I guess because he made the Maxine Walters story about him that this is also about journalists or something. No, this is about our actual democracy and government. Michael, sorry.
So first of all, obviously the Pearl Harbor thing is absurd. So
yeah, but
he leads with that, but then minimizes what actually. Who were the purported victims? 5 people actually died related to January 6th. One person, I think, had cardiac arrest or something like that. There were suicides linked to it. But more importantly, who were the purported victims? The American people who voted for Joe Biden. I don't like Joe Biden, but if they were successful,
that's not the point. We'll be like, Biden is not the point. If they were successful, they were going to overturn the government. That's the point.
Right. So, like, the victim is like you, Michael Tracy, an American. Americans. I don't think we actually have a democracy, but technically one of the only things is we're supposed to have, somewhat free and fair elections. We don't completely have free and fair elections. I give you the Democratic primary of 2016 and 2020. But it's just Michael Tracy is the definition. So if Joe Biden somehow, if cancer was cured, if there was a God, under Biden, Michael Tracy would come up with the contrarian take.
It was really Trump that did that.
Yeah, that's who he is. That's who he is. It's just to come up with the opposing view. If something's really serious, to minimize it. But Michael Tracy, by the way, after the George Floyd protests, he wasn't focusing on the black man that was just assassinated. He wasn't focused on the rage of black people all over America, their white allies. He was focused on looting. And he went around the country to talk to black business owners whose businesses were looted, or white business owners whose businesses were looted. Well, I'm sorry that their businesses were looted. It's not a nothing. But in the grand scheme of things, if a race is continually being massacred by police, that's kind of the focus. And I dug this one because this was one of my favorites. Colin, if you have it. When Michael and I worked at TYT, Michael's reaction to the Charlottesville tiki torch Nazi thing.
Yeah.
Colin, do you have that article? Let's show Michael Tracy's reaction, what he was most outraged on the whole tiki torch, the Jews will not replace us kind of thing, on firing Nazis. He wrote a piece on the constitutional problems with employers firing the Nazis.
Oh, Jesus.
Who held tiki torches
Are you kidding me?
in Charlottesville. And in fairness, in his defense, the opening was the usual caveats. This was a repugnant attack. We should denounce it, blah, 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 blah. So he did, check the box to denounce it, but then went on a long diatribe about the basically, defending the Nazis' right to be Nazis in public and then keep their jobs.
That doesn't exist.
Right.
What is he talking about? He wants free speech that is not free. Free speech isn't free speech free of consequence. That is the problem here. A lot of people can't understand that if they stand in the public square and utilize their free speech and they say things that are harmful, hateful, not palpable to others, that there might be actual real life consequences to that. Everybody has free speech around you. It's not just you. So our free speech in response to your free speech might be something that has real life consequences for you. That's just how it is.
Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.